Welcome to Untapped. We're in episode 12. We got Mr. Levi Kelly here of the Arizona Diamondbacks and elite world level exercise guy. We got Dana Cox behind the scenes here, high level audio and video engineer, and also of Sutton Place and Doc's Beats. Check out his music, pretty good. And I am Kyle Hanna, the world record holder and survived most chemotherapy, and also the cancer patient with the largest biceps in the world. Today we got a very special guest coming on in just a little bit, Dan GARNER. He is the #1 sports nutritionist in the world. He's coached gold medalists in the Olympics, Super Bowl champions, Stanley Cup champions, UFC champions. Our very own Sugar Sean O'Malley superstar, and he's also started working with Teo Swartz, who was just recently in our gym a jiu-jitsu champion. So we're just gonna kind of talk a little bit here before Dan pops in. He lives up in Canada, so we're really looking forward to this one. Very excited for it. Yeah. So how you been feeling, Mr. Levi?
Pretty good. I had a little soreness early last week just from building up and stuff, but overall I feel good.
Nice.
That's kind of all. I feel like that's gone now too. So today's Sunday, so Monday I'll pitch Tuesday, Friday, so I should be good to go for that. Just progressing until spring training.
Very nice.
2 weeks away.
Whew, exciting, man. Can't wait for these spring training games, man. We're going to all caravan together to some of these stadiums, man. It's a fun time if you've ever been down Arizona, the Phoenix area, metro area for spring training. There's a ton of fun game. It makes a really nice vacation, especially when I think it was 70 degrees here yesterday, right?
Yeah. I think spring training, if I was just a fan, I would rather go to spring training than a normal game because players will interact more with the fans. It's relaxed. You want to win and perform well, but it's it doesn't matter at all. Minor league guys are playing, so it's just more relaxed and more of a chill vibe type atmosphere.
Probably more affordable too. The last Diamondback game I went to, I think I spent $20 on a hot dog. I think the spring training game is a little more affordable.
Yeah, I wouldn't eat at the field. They're gonna tax you there.
Yeah, man. Well, we were kind of talking a little bit about younger athletes, and Levi's has some really good advice for younger athletes, and you're kind of talking about they're not attaching their identity to things, and maybe you talk a little bit about that. I think that's pretty cool.
I think, at least for me, going back to playing as a kid, it's a little easier. Once you start becoming paid for it, and people know you as a professional athlete, then it becomes more challenging to kind of disassociate yourself from the human being and then also the player. Yeah. But parents especially probably add to this, if you play bad, now you're in trouble essentially, or if you play good, now everything's cool at the house. Mm-hmm. That's what leads if I played good, then I'm a good person and I'm happy. If I play bad, now I'm depressed and whatever. Right. And you even see athletes take their lives in an older age because of performance stuff. Mm-hmm. So learning how to not see yourself as the athlete only, and okay, I look in the mirror regardless of good, bad, or ugly, I am who I am, and I know I'm still doing good regardless of my performance on or off the field,
That's good.
Yep. What's the update with you?
With me, we had a scan. Let's see. Last week I got real sick. Was way down. Kind of, even when I get into those places, I get real sick. So kind of even flirted. I could kind of feel death kind of creeping up on me. The following week, I came off the chemo. Man, I was feeling awesome. This one is a different type of chemo my body's ever done. It's a T cell therapy, so it's boosting T cells which fight cancer cells. So this week I've just been on fire. I've been feeling really good. We went in and we looked at that scan, and we had progression of disease. So this is the 6th progression of disease since I had a bone marrow transplant and became terminal cancer, which after you do a bone marrow transplant, you're no longer, you hear stage 4, the guy's got stage 4. Well, bone marrow transplant is the next level from that. You're not staged. And then the next level from that is terminal. It means there's no known cure. So this scan was a little bit, when I read it, I was kind of surprised. I could feel that I have some new tumors going on in my body. So we've got probably 75 to 100 tumors popped up on the scan. The biggest one is, I think, 3.7 centimeters. We got a new shot of some tumors up in the neck. So when I got the results, it kind of surprised me in a little bit. On one hand, I'm kind of used to these things, and we always prepare. Taya was mentioned earlier not to get too high or too low, and I think as this correlate to the athlete, and you were talking about not attaching your identity to it. So I try not to attach this is a loss or this is a win, but it's a little difficult still because when there is more cancer in my body, we have to treat it more. The treatment options start to diminish a little bit. And I know that since I've been doing this so long, I know there will be more suffering ahead. There will be days, like I had last week where I'm really sick, and that's okay. I can go through it and everything, but it's tough on Ara. It's tough on the boys. It takes away from goals that we have, and so for a second it just kind of hit me, and I walked out of Mayo Clinic, and it was dark. It was nighttime. I had a full day of testing and everything, and I just kind of was just talking to God a little bit, put my arms up, and just said, hey, I'm going to praise you in the good times and the bad time. That's my emotional health. I got to the car, and I just had an outpouring of tears, and nothing that I felt like pity or anything like that, just maybe just an emotional release sort of thing, and didn't want to wasn't looking forward to telling Ara when I got home. It's, if you really care for somebody, and you see them suffer, and I can prepare myself, and I get good times. I can come onto the podcast, I can go out and see people, but behind the scenes, there's a lot of days where there's almost like torture and suffering. So that gets a little bit hard on her, but we hugged. She had her tears, and then I think one thing when this happens is I'm able to get kind of stronger at when bad news does come. You get to kind of work those muscles a little bit. So it's like, okay, well, that happened, and now what's next? We're going to move forward. I'm fortunate to have such great people, Taya, Dana, Levi, our whole community of people that were around here in this section of the Recharge Center and Soul Fighters. And a lot of encouraging words, like Levi, I was just talking to him about, talking to you about, that we did have a little bit of reduction in a place that's been really sticky for probably the past 3 years. So that's a good sign. And Levi brought up something that my doctor said, is that this is a new chemo. The cancer's probably fighting. It popped up in some new places, and my body's doing weird things, but just keep focusing on, I'm feeling really good right now. So I don't think I decided, my doctor let me have the choice. He said he's praying for me, which was awesome to hear. Just a great guy, top lymphoma specialist in the world at the Mayo Clinic. And we decided to stay on the trial. We're ready to go with an emergency chemo that I've been responsive to. And we're just going to keep plugging away at this stuff, man.
I was thinking kind of like a fight. You might take a beating in the first round, but you got so many more rounds to go. You can knock a guy out in the next round. You know what I mean?
Let's go.
So just
100%.
Kind of have that mindset.
100%. I like that.
I'm trying to think what else we got. There was a baseball player that got, what was it? Not charged, but accused of, under investigation for domestic violence, I think.
Oh, shoot.
Not 100% sure, but supposedly the girl was like, he threw dip spit on the kid or whatever. Shit. Yeah. Mike, I don't know if I should say his name. Maybe I'll just keep his name chill, but yeah, wild. I think that goes into attaching identity to what's going on. Like, you play bad, now you go home, you're all pissed off, the baby's crying, you're like, shut up, That's when that becomes a problem, is because you're taking it home. Or if you're, let's say whatever happens, you're sick, and then you go home and now things are a problem because really you're aggravated with the sickness. Or for me, really I'm aggravated because I performed terribly, but then I go home and take it out on Taya or whatever. That becomes a real problem. And I think all the domestic violence stuff with athletes, like it's pretty common. Like you see it a lot.
As you see it a lot in football. I think
Yeah.
that's like the biggest one.
But I think part of it's you're frustrated because of X, Y, and Z, and then you can't turn the switch off.
I feel like there's less of a scope too on baseball and football players as opposed to NBA, because there's only 12 guys on the team at a
Yeah.
time in NBA, and then in
True.
football and baseball they can kind of still live their life without being, you know, constantly bothered and whatnot.
Yeah.
Because it's rarely like the like all-star caliber athletes who are doing the
Right.
domestic violence stuff.
Yeah.
That's true.
It's an interesting thing. The lady was talking about like maybe drugs were involved too, so maybe that has something to do with it. But who knows?
How was the Suns game?
It was sick.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sick.
They were up 28 or 30 when we left. We left like halfway through the third, and they won by like 2. So I don't know what happened. But have you been to the restaurant, the Vig downtown?
No.
Dude, fire spot. One of the probably my favorite spot in the area now. But like super nice, low
What kind of
key.
food is it?
What would you say? They have a little bit of everything.
Nice.
Like I had enchiladas, but they have other stuff too.
Heck yeah.
But it's like super nice, like super high end, but not crazy expensive.
Yeah, there's a lot. Is that right by the Footprint Center?
You could walk to it.
Yeah, there's so much right there.
It's like 15 to 20 bucks a meal, but for the quality of like atmosphere, it's like I thought it was going to be spendy. So I was surprised. Good spot.
I think it's worth it sometimes to splurge. We kind of did that last night. We went out to an Italian restaurant in Phoenix, and it was kind of like that same price range. But the ambience that we were sitting in, the food, even Chef Mama Ara was like, "Yeah, it's pretty good." You know, the quality of your
Right.
food, the service, and all that kind of stuff it's just a fun experience to hang out together and talk and enjoy the time.
I think there's an energy that's like you go into a good restaurant or like high end place. Like you don't want to get caught up in all the everything's got to be high end, but there's an energy that it's kind of like this is nice, this is professional, whatever. I always tell her like if I can't eat perfect, then we're spending too much money on something else because food has got to be the number one priority.
Heck yeah,
Always.
for sure. What's new with you, Sir Dana?
Nothing. Just getting prepared for this show. Slightly getting nervous, but
When is that show again?
it's next Thursday.
Next Thursday in
or this coming
Chicago.
Thursday, I guess now.
I'm excited for that, man.
Yeah, we'll see.
Hopefully,
We'll
get
see
some
what
new
happens.
music.
Yeah.
too.
Oh no, we got a song signed to a label for the first time, so that comes out at the end of February.
Dang.
Wow.
So, and this is actually like an event for the label.
How
So-
old are the band? Like
I'm 25, and then my partner, he's I think 25 too. And yeah, it's just DJing, really, just getting
Yeah.
up there and mixing our
That's
music,
sick.
mixing other people's music. It's pretty simple. That's why DJ game is so easy, like being an artist, because you don't. I mean, you pay a manager maybe, right?
Right.
But this manager's doing your booking. They're doing, they're sending out demos. They're doing all this stuff when you're at like my level.
Mhm.
So, you're not paying them crazy amounts, and then you're flying out. You get flights paid for or whatever to go
Right.
play a show. I mean, you don't have a lot of costs, and you make a lot of money
Yeah.
doing it. So there's a lot of reward with it. For
So
sure.
they're kind of like gambling. We're going to take care of you now because we're going to get you on the back end.
Yeah, pretty much.
Same thing as like baseball agencies, similar.
Yeah. I mean, ticket sales definitely go into it and stuff, but a lot of times they're promoting more the party and, the show than they are you when you're at this level.
Right.
So they're not expecting you to, do crazy ticket sales. You just put it on
Yeah.
your story or whatever. But,
Right.
I mean, yeah, they're selling the party.
That's sick.
My boys Kai, Luke, and CJ are big fans of Doc's beats. Every time he releases something, we're all over it, bumping it in the car and things like that. So you got a spot for Doc's beats. That's who you are. That's what you call yourself, right? And then Sutton Place is like your collab with your partner, right?
Yeah, exactly. I was actually I just met somebody. There's a band called Beach Weather, and they had a song that came out in 2016 that just blew up on TikTok, of course, and they're at like 300 million plays on it on just on Spotify.
Wow.
And the person that mixed and produced it was at my work the other day, and he came in, and my boss introduced me to him and all this kind of stuff, got his contact, and he makes music just sitting makes money just sitting at home mixing other people's music, making it sound better, plain and simple. And he makes his whole career off that. I mean,
That's incredible.
Ideally that would be what I do as well.
I think Mike Stud, you know him?
Yeah, of course.
I don't think he's ever signed a deal with anyone. I think it's all on his, and now he's like, I'm going to produce. I was listening to a podcast. He's like, I'm going to produce when I want to produce. And like, I'm going to move at my own drum beat. You know, I'm not going to, I'm signed with these people, I need to get this out. He's like, no, it's going to come out organically, and my fans are going to grow with me like organically, and it's all going to be organic. But I think like rewind 20 years, you couldn't do that because there's no social media. So that was the only way to get your music out.
Yeah. Prince is like the leader in, he at some point just said fuck labels. That was his biggest thing. He wanted to just release music on his own, and he had a huge career, successful based off that, but he had to release tons and tons of music. Whereas on the labels, they're like, you know, you sign a contract with them to release an album every 2 years. Mm-hmm. And then, you know, they want 100 songs from you, but they want to decide out of the 100 and not let you decide. Right. And then they're taking, you know, an insane cut. Like, I'm not trying to say what the cut is on the deal that we just did, but they just signed one song, and it's a chunk of the royalties and stuff, you know, so it's not ideal to be signing with anybody. And you can do so much self-promotion now to where, shit, you have a song pop off on TikTok, you don't need a label or anything like that for that.
Could you sign with somebody like early on and then like later on be like, peace?
Yeah, it's just like baseball. You sign a contract with them and you finish that out. I mean, it's pretty unheard of to like be able to get out of your contract.
But you can renegotiate after it's done.
They're gonna decide that based on how well you did. You know, they're gonna look at the analytics. It's, you know, just like baseball. They're like, oh, you know, who was that guy that just got re-signed by the Rays or whatever? His last like 22 innings, he struck out 36 guys and only had 5 walks, and then walked away with a huge deal.
Yeah, I think, was it the guy that he avoided? So he signed 3 years for his arbitration years.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So
I'd fucking do that shit too.
Yeah.
Amazing. Wow. We were kind of talking about how much time we got until.
I was just checking.
10 minutes.
I would say do like 5 more minutes, and then we
right
can get
on.
set up.
Well, I've been battling this little thing when I went through a bone marrow transplant. That's where you get a whole new immune system. It was a donor immune system. So I battled this graft versus host disease where my donor immune system attacks my old system, and it kind of attacks my body. So it thinks it's going to help, but it actually ends up hurting me. So when I came out of the last bone marrow transplant, I went blind in my left eye for a little bit because there's some kind of weakness there. Maybe it's sometimes triggered from looking at screens too long or something, but it started to kick up again. So I'm kind of losing a little bit of sight there. And, you know, we're working on getting that back. But this morning I was studying, I think it was in Luke 12. And it was, and it's there's a story in there that really stood out to me, kind of talking about the identity stuff that we've been talking about and things. And this, it was a story of a man who had a barn, and he had huge crops and everything, and he just kept building it up, and it kept growing, and he kept just growing and growing. And the way it's kind of described is he got so attached to it. It defined his identity, you know, and imagine it's constantly focused. He's quoted in there saying like, wow, this is just, you know, this is great. I just keep growing my barn. I keep growing my barn. It's just growing bigger and bigger. And then all of a sudden God comes to the farm and he says, you fool, this is the day you die. What are you going to do with this now? This is all you've done. Right. And he says that what is that? What is it if your life ends instead of trying to fill it with God in your life? So that's really hit me hard, because sometimes I'll be battling and I'll be stuck on the optimizing health, because this optimizing health stuff, there's no doubt in my mind that this is why I'm alive, especially in the last 4 or 5 years, is just growing and connecting with people like Levi, Dana, where we're just constantly building and growing. We got Dan Gardner, the best in the world. There's constantly breakthroughs in science and optimizing health and just new tools to be using. And I'm constantly, sometimes I get guilty of just focusing on myself all the time and attaching it to the cancer sort of identity. You know, you got the the eye thing. What am I going to do? Instead of feeling that with God, whenever I feel that sort of battle with God, and I take the focus, it takes the focus off of myself. And I notice when I'm chasing those things, trying to fill my barn, trying to fill those things up, and that's what I'm completely focused on. When bad news comes, it's easier to get stuck in those negative emotions like fear, worry, hopelessness, those kinds of things. But when I've learned, that's been my number one secret. When I put God at the source, maybe that's studying the Bible every day, giving praise, taking the focus off myself, giving love to people, being grateful, all those characteristics are kind of universally known to build. But if I'm focusing on myself, it's really hard to do that. I got to put that in God. And then that's my secret. That's my trick. And I was kind of convicted because I've been so focused on that. I wasn't putting God at the source of that. So that's kind of my sermon today.
Similar thing I was talking about with Taya is going to the field. Like before I would go to the field, my mindset was like, fuck you, I'm the best motherfucker here, this, that, and the other. Now my mindset is more like, regardless if I do good, bad, or whatever, like I have to impact this culture here, because that maybe I get cut tomorrow, maybe I get cut in 10 years, but like what's going to live on is the impact that I made on the people around me. That shit's like, I was telling Taya, we're doing all these things, sauna, whatever, working on like spiritual stuff and like mental health, physical health, all of it. And you're going to use this to impact down the line. And that's shit that you can look in the mirror and be like, man, I'm proud of that.
That's good.
So that's my last little rant before
It's
Gardner.
really true though. We have the guy who taught me at my job, he was a Marine, and then he went and worked for the Defense Department recently, and he just came back. And the minute he came back, he did a couple of things that then boom, I saw our GM do and then our boss do. Simple things like taking the trash out.
Yeah.
And like that's a good metaphor for like, hey, they watched him take the trash out, and then they both looked at their trash cans,
Right.
grabbed them, went outside and took them out too.
Yeah.
And I think people they underestimate how much of an impact they have on other people just on how they move.
I was talking to those kids and I was just like so vulnerable. Like they were like, I can't believe you're saying this right now. Like I almost that maybe they thought I should be ashamed. Like I would be too ashamed to admit these things, but saying that, and then it gives somebody else courage to be vulnerable.
Nice.
And then it just trickles down the line. It's like, Levi didn't care. He's fucking saying whatever he thinks.
Yeah.
Now, like, he didn't get released or whatever. So now that gives me the ability or confidence to be like, it's fine. I'll be honest, you know?
Yeah.
So
That's so good. I like that whole realness factor. I think it's so easy, especially when everybody's trying to reiterate their identity. Maybe they're attaching it to monetary values. I think people do that in their careers. They do it in their self. And that's one reason I like jiu-jitsu so much, because we see that gets stripped. You go in there and you think you got it all together. You think you're the toughest guy ever, and you go in and you get humbled. And that humbling, I think, is so powerful to the body.
right. It's like, I think about that too. It's like, oh, you're big, bad, whatever, but okay, in this other place, you're a pussy.
Yeah.
Or nobody even knows you exist. Like, you're popping here, but in this other world, people don't care. Nobody really cares. And just being aware of that, like not getting too big where you think, oh, everybody gives a fuck what Levi's doing.
Right.
When like 6 miles down the road, nobody even knows who Levi is, you know?
Right.
So being aware of that, I think, is important.
That's true.
That's good to go
Definitely.
before Gardner.
Right on. Oops, there we go. We gave you a little intro, but we'd like to hear, who would you say Dan Garner is?
Oh, who would I say Dan Garner is? A man who was about 14 years old and wasn't given a lot of physical gifts, so he dove into the gym And having a lack of genetics was actually a blessing in disguise because it forced me to look up the science on absolutely everything behind getting optimal results. Because to get my body moving in the direction I needed to move it, I had to do like basically everything. I always was interested in strength and hypertrophy at a younger age. And my dad, even in his 40s, was like 140 pounds or even in the high 130s. So very small guy. And then I was fighting that genetic battle, looked up absolutely everything in strength training and nutrition in order to optimize my approach to getting stronger. I was actually in martial arts at the time and I wanted to get stronger for that, but then also just in a vain sense, I just wanted to be bigger as well. And then that kind of just led to fascination and relentless curiosity towards the human body that still stands to this day. So that's where I'm at right now, and I use primarily lab interpretation to work with the best athletes in the world in order to get the job done.
So that's a summary story of how you became the greatest sports nutritionist of all time. I love it.
Very large. The road to any type of title like that is definitely like this. Wasn't that clean, but here we are, and I get to be on the greatest podcast of all time. While I'm at it.
Thank you, brother. Well, we are the Untapped podcast. So we'll hit you with some kind of open-ended questions to start. Man, you hit that one hard. I've listened to on a lot of different podcasts. I think I've listened to all of the Dan Garner Report. So anybody out there, I know you do Barbell Shrugged as well. Anybody out there listening, you can learn a lot about Dan through those podcasts. So we are the Untapped, and we try to keep our podcast kind of focused on optimizing health, but also taking it into places it's never been before. We saw Sugar's last fight. Dan works with Sugar, and Dan also works with us at the Recharge Center to kind of get to manage Sean's whole diet and his nutrition. And we saw Sean really get taken into the depths of the Untapped against maybe one of the greatest fights of all time. And so we go into those untapped places, those places that we got to bring the dog out, and it's places we never been before. What's a time you can think of, or maybe something recently where you had to go into the Untapped?
Oh man, I was actually in the beginning of my career, I was given a big opportunity to go out west and work with athletes out there. And then when I got there, it was nothing like it was advertised. And then I ended up leaving that facility in only 8 months. But my then girlfriend, now wife, she had a job back home, and I was like, no, we got to go out west. We went out west, and then that just didn't pan out. So then she left her job, came out with me, and then I was like, I got my girl to come out west with me. We are 40 hours a drive back home from Ontario to Alberta. And she's had to get a new job out here. Did I kind of move us out here for nothing? And then I was like, absolutely freaking not. And I just went berserk to 16-hour days, 7 days a week for years, forever. And I would actually like learning and science and staying ahead of the curve was my primary weapon, because basically 3 things in the industry can get you heard of and respected at an accelerated rate. If you are an athlete with a lot of accolades, people will generally listen to your thoughts on health and fitness purely because of your success in the athletic world. Or if you've got a really bodybuilding style physique, people tend to listen. He's got a lot of results. Maybe I should listen to him. Or if you have a PhD, people listen to you just purely based on intellectual papers that you have. So I had none of these 3 things. So then I was like, okay, grinding is the only gear I have. I brought my girl out here. We're in this tiny little apartment with debt. I have to get us out of it. So I just went morning to night. And speaking in terms of being untapped, man, I had this playlist that was about 7 hours long. And then I would start reading research, and then the playlist would stop. And I'd be like, ooh, it's been 7 hours. I've been here for 7 hours. So I went into full chaos to build a name and a reputation in the online world. And thankfully that did work out. But and I'm still obviously grinding, but it's just a different kind of grinding right now. I'm like creating things and doing a lot of exactly what I want to do. But in the beginning of your career, when you're trying to get a reputation, when you don't have any kind of leverage, you've got no budget, and you've got none of the three things I talked about. I went absolutely ballistic, and it was an unsustainable level of ballisticness, if that's a word. But that's definitely the first thing that comes to mind in terms of Untapped.
Was there like you would say a lot of people along the road like misunderstood, like, Dan, hey, you're doing way too much, like you're obsessed, this is not healthy, X, Y, and Z. And now you look back, because I feel like in my career, I'm a baseball player, I don't know if you know me that well, but
yeah,
there's a lot of that because of injuries I've had. I've became obsessed with like body movement and just functional training and stuff like that. And trainers will tell me like, can you just chill? Like, maybe just don't worry about feeling perfect all the time. And I'm like, this is my passion. Regardless of baseball, I'm going to be in the gym working out because I love like body function stuff, regardless of performance. And I feel like there's a disconnect because of maybe the obsession I have, and just interested, like, did people tell you like, Dan, you're crazy, you're going too far, like you need to disconnect from this, you need to be more X, Y, and Z? And you're like, listen, I'm going to grind now because so later my kids don't have to, or my grandkids don't have to grind the way I did.
Absolutely, man. That's exactly what I thought. I mean, pay the price today so you can pay any price in the future. I am absolutely just going to get after it like an animal right now. And I never like, even though if someone were to look at my the productivity that happened during that time frame, or the amount of, or lack of sleep that I got per night in order to get up and keep going, it would have, on paper, it does look chaotic. But as I'm sure you guys know, there's a big difference between being driven and being inspired. I think when someone is judging us, saying you look obsessed, I think it's because they have to be driven to do what they do because they're in a job that particularly they may not like. They're in a circumstance of life to where they actually need discipline and drive and like this ability to deal with discomfort in a way that I'm not always familiar with, because I was always inspired to do what I want to do. It's almost push versus pull. I don't have to push myself to get up and read research. I don't have to push myself to create the brain protocol for Sean. Like, I feel pulled towards those things. It feels, it's not so much work as it is my responsibility. So when I'm being pulled towards it, that adds fuel to my fire. You can call it obsessed. That's fine. I'm not going to get burnt out because I'm being pulled towards that. I'm inspired by it. I know it's my responsibility. A lot of the people who discuss obsession or anything like that, I do think that they have to be driven rather than inspired. Because anybody who's truly inspired knows what you and I are talking about right now. There's no other option. That's what you do.
I think Goggins talked about that on maybe Joe Rogan podcast or something. He's like, if you want to be the baddest motherfucker on the planet, you're going to be misunderstood by a lot of people. And you at 100%. Some point have to accept that. I mean, I always like, these people think I'm fucking crazy. But to me, the way they think, I think it's crazy. I'm like, what the hell are you doing? So there's a disconnect. And I would say maybe struggled a little bit with like understanding that. But then I listen to people like you, listen to people like Sean, listen to people that are the greatest at what they do. And it's like, I ain't as crazy as y'all seem, because everybody else is saying the same thing that I admire. So
for sure. And the thing is too, like all those people that we admire, the people that we talk about, Elon Musk, Steve Jobs, guys like Sean O'Malley, you know why a lot of people look back and admire them? Because they're fucking original. They're original people. And you're going to be misunderstood if you're original. That's going to happen. People aren't supposed to understand you. You're new. You're original. You're a different kind of creature. You're not like everyone else in the machine. That's a badge of honor. That's nothing to be ashamed of.
Right. Yeah, that's good stuff. So I know you finished the brain protocol, right? I'm excited, about that coming ahead. Are you planning to release that to the public?
Yes. Nice. Yeah. So me and Sean have been talking about it. We're actually probably going to put it on Kindle. That's kind of the main spot, because we figured if we put it in PDF format, that'd be on Reddit in 5 minutes, and then everyone would have it. So I think that Kindle is probably the best way to protect that kind of intellectual property. But yeah, me and Sean, we're joining forces on that. Discussions and deals and stuff, they're already done. We just have to get this thing live and publish it. So I'm really excited about that, man. Brain health is just something that people, it's like it's your number one asset, during fighting, after fighting, but even for football, for anything else. Like there's a lot that you can do, and I called it the brain synergy protocol because it's one synergistic system. So it's not just nutrition, it's not just supplements, it's nutrition, supplementation, lifestyle, what training you can do to stimulate neurofactors, all of that. So it's one all-encompassing system to help people just improve the health of their brain and improve their brain resilience.
So the first thing that came to mind was football for me. Like that can be a massive thing. Like every single team out there should at least take a look at this, you know? So.
Yeah, I think that's for sure. Like this, and it improves brain resilience on top of that. Like it's something that I absolutely poured a lot of those obsessed 3 a.m. wake ups. I don't know if you guys ever see my Instagram stories ever, but I've got a lot of wild wake up times. But it's because I wake up and I get excited about something. I could see the end of it's like I got up a lot. The December was full of 3 a.m. wake ups because I would just wake up and I could kind of see the end of the road after validating that brain protocol in the scientific literature for so long. I could actually start to see the end of the road. Like, man, I'm about to wrap this thing up. Like this is it. And then I was getting up to finish it and wrap it up. And yeah, we're wrapped up now. And the thing is, it is, you know, ambidextrous in the way that it is revolving around brains and concussions. So any sport, you know, MMA, Taekwondo, football, whatever it's going to be, I think any athlete who cares about the health of the brain, which is probably 100% of the athletes listening to this podcast, should check this thing out.
Nice. Are you aware of IMG Academy in Florida?
No, I'm not.
It's like a boarding school, athletes only, pretty high level football team, like 4 and 5 star recruits pretty much only on that high school team. Maybe that's something I would connect you and them, because it's a pretty prestigious. If you pay full tuition, they're not on financial aid. It's like $80,000 a year, and it's top prep school in the country. I would say for sports. So probably something they should definitely look at as well.
Yeah, it's funny the things that I'm just not. One of my colleagues, Andy Galpin, he's like, "Hey man, do you know this guy?" Or he'll text me like, "This guy." I never know who he's talking about. I'm such a hermit in my basement all the time. Like I'll just be reading research, and he'll send like a name as if I'm supposed to know it, and I have to Google it every time. Like that's the listeners were probably like, they know the school you're talking about, and I just have no idea. It sounds incredible.
That's a good place to be, though. I feel like if you're exposed to many things, maybe your battery's running a little low.
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to when I fully expect you're going to be on the Joe Rogan show. And I know you got a lot of exciting collabs going on. I saw one you just released with Dr. Andy Galpin. What else do you have? Or maybe you could talk about the new things that you're kind of creating.
Yeah. So like I've been in the lab-based nutrition game for many years. And it was just a way, it was primarily to set up bumpers in my life to protect me from bias. So bumpers as in like if you're terrible at bowling, you put up the bumpers so that you can throw the ball and then it goes and at least you hit a couple of pins. That is like how I've had to approach coaching, because I've just had the self-awareness to know that everybody has a bias, even when they're pretending they don't. We do. We're human. So we all have a way of thinking. We've all had a different environment and different past triggers that have formed the way we think today. And I didn't want that to form the way in which I got people results, because I saw people in the industry that painted everyone with the same brush. And I thought it was insane. Like to be known as the carnivore diet guy, or to be known as the vegan guy, or to be known as the Mediterranean, or known as the fasting guy. Like when you are marketing yourself into one silo of a diet, in my opinion, you're marketing yourself as someone who doesn't understand human physiology. Because if you're trying to fit everybody into one spectrum of eating, then your knowledge regarding biochemistry and human metabolism is so small that you think that there's a one size fits all approach. Like that's it's mean to say, but it's very embarrassing when I like, one of my number one pieces of advice for people is to avoid the guy. If in your city, if there is a paleo guy or a fasting guy or whatever it is, the guy, then he's going to put everybody into the same diet. Maybe 50% of them will get results and the other 50 won't. The 50% who gets the results, they're going to feed his bias. He's going to be like, see, this is the thing. And then the other 50% that don't get results, he's going to be like, they just didn't have discipline. They didn't do it right. It's like, no, you're a terrible coach. That's exactly what happened. So that's being stuck in a bias. And I just saw that so much to where, come full circle back to my answer here. It's why I chose labs, because labs don't care about your morals. They don't care about your philosophy. They don't care about your past history. They don't care about anything except what your physiology is right now. So I was like, okay, this is a beautiful way to remove my bias and what I'm currently excited about. But it's also a beautiful way to remove my client's bias, because they're coming to me with a bunch of unsubstantiated biases as well. So when we can actually just look at these labs together, then it's their physiology leading the way rather than mine or their philosophy leading the way. And when you follow someone's physiology, that's when you can get lights out world-class results. So I've been doing that lab-based thing for many years now. And now I'm joining forces with Andy on that because we had complementary skill sets. He was really good at managing all things from the outside in, whereas my knowledge on everything from the inside out is what allowed us to really join forces in that regard. But something else I'm really excited about, and kind of all of that was a preface to this answer, is that right now I'm creating a proprietary algorithm and my own lab work software. So I'm already in the process of it. I was working on it again this morning, to where I'm creating a software so other people can see labs the way I do. So that's the biggest and most exciting thing I'm working on right now, because now that the brain protocol is done, it's full gears away on this software, and I'm hoping to have like a beta version of it out this year for people.
So is the software like basically a dumbed down version? So like a person that doesn't understand all these terms and stuff that you understand, they can look at it and be like, oh, this is what this means. That's kind of what I got from that.
100%. Yeah. So basically like an automated PDF reader. So like you'll get your lab, and then my software will have an automated PDF reader. So it'll read your PDF and then automatically input your results into my software. And then that software will automatically output the trends and patterns that are associated with your results, but also recommended foods, recommended supplements, recommended lifestyle changes. It'll all come out on the back end as what you need to do based on your results. So whether you know the physiology behind it or not, you've got action items.
Are you teamed with a supplement brand or no?
Not yet.
Oh,
Not yet.
I could see like, okay, it's gonna,
yeah.
I feel like you should design your own supplement brand.
Yeah, I know. I've made it a thing in my career to always like not be associated with supplements, and because I've always said I sell expertise, I don't sell products. So whenever anybody, when I assigned someone, like say if I told them to get on 10 supplements, they knew I wasn't making money off of that. So then they'd be like, okay, this is 100%. I should be doing this because he's not just trying to sell me something extra. But I mean, for the software, we might have to get a supplement deal in order and connect it to these other things, because I actually not even in the business sense that makes sense, but in the sense that I can control the outcome. Because if I actually just want to trust the source. Because if my software spits out, say, I recommend a B vitamin and this, if they go and get it from some local crappy store, then my software might get blamed for the lack of results. Whereas it was just the wild, wild west that is the supplement industry.
Right. Supplements that you believe in or that you trust would be ideal, I would say.
100%. Yeah, there's a lot of good versus bad in the supplement world.
Yeah, I'm
I
sure.
know you're real big about marrying science and art together, and I see you've do that with Sugar, kind of being around him and things. For the art part, what would you say is? Maybe you could talk a little bit about the art part of that.
Sure. So like there's definitely an art to coaching to where you can actually sacrifice optimal for what's contextually optimal. Like, so I know that sounds weird, but there's a hockey player named Sidney Crosby who's actually a pretty good example of this. He always had a peanut butter and jelly sandwich before hockey games. That was his pre-game meal. And on paper, that's not an optimal pre-game meal. You're having a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. But if I were to come in there and be like, hey, Crosby, look, I know you're the number one hockey player in the world right now, but let me just tell you that you're doing everything wrong. Okay, you're doing it wrong. So I'm going to change your pregame meal because what you're doing and you were already the number one hockey player in the world, but let me change everything. Like that I can actually create a performance decrease due to the positive psychological benefits that he gets from the ritual of his pregame meal. Like every athlete has some sort of a ritual, whether it's their meal, whether it's their warm up. You'll see in the UFC, Anderson Silva would always open his arms, bounce off the cage. John Jones crawls into the octagon. George St. Pierre would sprint to one side and sprint to the other side and then start bouncing. Like you see guys do the exact same thing all the time to create a flow state in their sports psychology. They have certain movement triggers, certain meal triggers, certain all kinds of triggers that allow them to feel like they are in a flow state and they're ready to dominate. That happens in all sports. So in terms of the art of coaching, my job is to optimize as much science as possible while in an artistic way minimizing or completely eliminating any disruption of their superstitions or rituals that allow them to perform the way that they do. So in that case, like I would be more agreeable to change, say, Crosby's breakfast or his dinner or his post-game shake or his supplement routine or his sleep or stress management routine. There are so many boxes I can check that aren't his pre-game peanut butter and jelly. That's something I would just keep because I don't want to mess with that ritual at all.
For me, I have like certain things warming up wise or day before things that I do that are like, these are non-negotiables. Like these things have to be done and there's not a conversation about it. But there's many things that, okay, let's adjust this, let's adjust that, let's do this. Today I feel like this, so I'm going to do this instead of that. So I think athletes especially probably have 3 or 4 things that are like, this is non-negotiable, don't touch it. And right. As a coach, it speaks to like your detachment from your ego as like, I'm Dan Gardner, I need to control everything. Where a lot of coaches are that way, like the vegan guy, the carnivore guy. It's a branding thing rather than like, this is what I truly believe.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, like you learn as a coach when you have, and I think that's actually a good distinction between an educator and a coach, because someone who spends their life writing books and doing lectures and seminars, they can know a lot about a physiology and nothing about coaching. Like as a coach, you learn you need to be the tree that bends with the wind with your athlete, and and it depends on the athlete that you get. So I chunk athletes into 2 phases. In the beginning, it's the quantitative stage, and then as they progress, I call it the qualitative stage. So if you get a brand new guy at jiu-jitsu or in any sport, they are going to go through quantification when working with me, in that I am going to quantify what they do. I know how many sets and reps you need per week to work on the areas in the gym that are going to support jiu-jitsu performance. I know exactly what your rest periods should be. I also know, based on the scientific literature, how many grams of proteins, carbs, and fats you should have. I know what your meal frequency is going to be. In short, for this quantification stage, you are going to shut up and listen to me. But as we work through that quantification and as you become a more advanced athlete, one of the greatest skills you ever gain as you progress in the world of athletics is the ability to listen to your body and be right. Like the athletes and they can't always explain it scientifically, but they know exactly what's going on. Like you can change even a very small thing, and they're like, I didn't feel as good today. I felt more sluggish, or I felt lighter. I felt better. They're so in tune with their body. That's when we move into the qualitative stage, where it's now no longer a coaching dictatorship, but now it's a coaching relationship to where I'm going to qualify decisions through you before I make them. In quantification, I make decisions. In qualifications, I have to talk to my athlete, and we have a coaching relationship and not a dictatorship. We agree on something and then we move forward with it. Because now you're at a point where even if I run your labs and I do all this stuff, I don't have the ego to think that I know your body better than you do. So we're always going to qualify decisions through you. Once we agree, we're going to move forward, test it out, and then keep rocking and rolling from there.
I think that probably allows the athlete you work with to trust you a lot more too, rather than just the constant, here, do this, do this, do this. I remember last year I ran into one of the strength coaches with the team, and some days, like after I pitch, I'll do a mobility day, and it's kind of more like a mobility flush, but I never write it down. I just get out there and kind of flow, and I'm moving around, and there's no really structure to it. And he kept saying, I need to see what you're doing. And I was like, well, I don't really know what I'm going to do. I'll just go out there and flow and move and kind of feel around and work on things that I feel like I need to work on today, but maybe next mobility day, I don't do those things. So there's no structure to it. And he just couldn't wrap his head around that. Like, I don't have 1, 2, 3, and this is what I'm doing. I'm just out there playing, essentially, like out on the turf and just moving around in like a jungle gym almost. And it was just interesting. Like, couldn't wrap his head around that.
Yeah, like that happens a lot. And with Sean, for example, when I was hanging out with Sean in his backyard, and he was back there with music on and just doing different stretches and different movement patterns, and he was just flowing. That's really what it looked like. He did some flow stuff and then did a real quick dip in the cold plunge, and that was it. And that's when I was there for like a week or so, just for observation on everything that he was doing. But yeah, it sounds like exactly what you're saying. You're going out there, you're listening to your body. If there's cobwebs in one joint, you might just get that out. If you want to move in this one direction or open or close, you just do that. And when it's time to start or stop, that's all just kind of up to your body. That'd be fine. That's like, I would just, keep doing that. I don't need to quantify that. I know that you're not bringing yourself to some level of fatigue that's even relevant anyways. So just keep doing it. I'm cool with that.
Baseball is a very like less is more type sport. I think probably because you don't like, you can be overweight and obese and still perform relatively well and get paid a lot of money. So there's so many different levels of like fitness. You might have the guy that's super fit, and then you might have the guy that's obese. And for most of the time, they're trying to train the guys similar. And it's like, I'm rolling jujitsu in the off season. Like, I need different things than the guy that's sitting in Old Town and drinking a couple brewskis. Like, it's just, there's just a different type of fitness level there.
For sure. Yeah. I've worked with MLB All-Stars and Cy Young winners. And man, I don't think people understand how high the injury risk and injury rate is in baseball because of your guys' schedule and the training outside that, and even the jet lag on top of that. Like, you guys are all over the place all the time.
The lifestyle is just not healthy. Like 162 games in like 180 days, and then your plane rides or bus rides all over the place. You might get in at midnight, 2 a.m., and then you got a morning game at 10 a.m. So it's just like, some of it's just not ideal, but kind of control the things that you can control to be the best athlete you can put out there.
Yeah. And that was actually one of my inspirations. I've got a resilience score that I provide athletes now. And baseball is a big inspiration for that, because a lot of it is just staying uninjured. If you can maintain your level of performance and not have aches and pains, then that resiliency plays such a big role in surviving that season and still thriving at the end of that season without all kinds of inflammation and pain or
Our audio cut out. Our audio's out for a second. We're missing this. Let me see. I don't know if that was him or us.
Yeah, it's probably him.
Let's see here.
Am I back?
Yeah, perfect.
All right.
I'm back. Okay, cool. All right. So yeah, get picking up where I left off. I just had a lot of inspiration of creating a resiliency score for MLB guys. And there's a lot of stuff you could pick up in labs, like immune markers and inflammation markers, hormone markers. A lot of these are kind of canaries in the coal mine for resiliency. And even from the outside in, something like a CO2 tolerance breath test can be a good representation of resiliency as well. So these are all like I was inspired from it in baseball, but it does apply to other sports too. The degree to which you're resilient in a huge way is going to determine the degree to which you perform.
For sure, yeah.
Amazing. Well, I know you got a lot of stuff going on right now. We don't want to take up too much of your time, so we'll start to wrap it up real soon. But I wanted to ask you one question. I know a lot of people probably don't know about this, but Dan is something of an ambassador to multi-planetary nutrition. So what's the update going on there?
Dude, yeah, that was one of the wilder experiences ever. It's when you wake up or you look around and you're like, what? How did I get here? Like, how did this happen? You're surrounded by people who are like scary smart, like physicists, just ripping through things. And you're like, man, where there was, so to provide people context, I was at this event in Colorado. NASA was there. A company called Deep Space was there. There was people from Jeff Bezos's company, Blue. It's called a Blue something, anyways. But there was a lot of different space companies there, and there was a discussion on what would nutrition or human physiology, rather, what would it need to look like to survive multiplanetary travel? And there was all kinds of stuff like hotels being built on the moon, planetary AI being called Alexa in space. Like that was already just openly being discussed, that the AI in space is Alexa in space. Getting to Mars, what does the human physiology need to look like? And it was very cool because they're at a point right now where getting to Mars isn't a rocket problem, it's a human problem. How do we get there and survive? And then it was even on top of that, like it wasn't just physiology, it was also psychologically and emotionally, like being in that environment for that long, not being with family, the people who are getting there, what are they even going to be like? Are they going to create a different type of person out there? There's a whole lot. So I basically provided what I could provide with respect to what adaptations I think would happen to physiology in space and how we could become resilient enough to overcome those. And then the conversation began to continue revolving around, why are we trying to create a human that's going to live in space and be a Martian? Why don't we actually create the Martian here and then send that thing to Mars, because that's actually going to be the different species on Mars. So it was wild because I was bringing up points like, if we are in low gravity, well, then we're going to have decreased bone density. We're going to have, there's probably going to be alterations in our red blood cells because they respond to oxygen content. And our oxygen is much more variable there than it is here. We're in a sterile environment for such a long period of time. So what's going to happen to the immune system in a completely sterile environment where nothing's ever challenging it? The food is different. There was all kinds of things that I was... from a muscle mass perspective, you're not being provided resistance. A lot of things I was bringing up so that we could overcome those. But then that conversation, it basically was that, why are we actually trying to overcome what makes us human if we can actually just have someone here, be a Martian here, and actually already have those adaptations of low bone density? Maybe that's not a decrease in this unique type of performance. Maybe that's actually the adaptation that they would need. Much like in baseball, you would want rotational power and structural stability to do your thing. Maybe the adaptations demanded for space is low bone density, muscle weakness, the red blood cells to adapt to their levels of oxygen. Why don't we actually create one of those here and then send that thing? out into Mars. And so the mind-blowing discussions are happening.
That's kind of been my thing for the past 11 years. That's what I've been working on, hacking my body and this whole setting the world record and surviving the most chemo. Yeah. So here's my proposal is, brother, I'll be your Martian. I'm right here.
Yeah. Man. All right. I'll talk to my people. We'll see if we can get you to become a Martian. We'll record this. Talk about Untapped.
We lost our co-host to Mars.
Yeah, to Mars. He volunteered to lose his bone density, to lose his muscle mass and strength.
I've been doing it off and on for 11 years. Why not?
Oh, God. They're talking about, too, the psychological and emotional changes of traveling that far and not communicating with people. If you're only communicating with me and him, you're going to be psychologically and emotionally disturbed anyways. The Untapped podcast is the only thing you get to keep going on the way to Mars. You're going to go insane.
Well, they might want to look at bone marrow transplant patients because we spend a lot of time in isolation with no contact of humans. So you do have to kind of, if you're going to survive, you got to prepare for that stuff. Say, hey, this might be a real thing.
Yeah. You want to talk resiliency? You've got a lot of resiliency. Let's get you up there.
Can always use more.
I'm good to go. That was awesome. We appreciate you coming on.
So fun. I love. We're just so grateful that you're on the pod and so exciting to watch everything you're doing and looking forward to the next victory when Sugar Sean becomes the champion over here.
Hell yeah, dude. Me too. I'm looking forward to that. Thank you guys for the opportunity. This is just fun. This is three bros just hanging. So this is a blast for me. Happy to come back on anytime.
Thanks, brother.
So
we appreciate
much.
You. All right.
Peace,
cool, bro. I'll see ya.
Bye-bye. What an absolute blast with Dan Garner. That was so much fun. We look forward to checking in with him in the future. And like we were saying, can't wait to see what's next up for him. What did you think?
Yeah, I mean, that went better than I expected. And kind of like, I don't really know him that well, so I didn't know what to expect. But it's interesting how he's like so obsessed with, quote unquote, obsessed with his whole thing. And I can relate to that.
Yeah.
As far as I have my own passions and whatever. And I feel like my, I don't know what the word, but like my attention to detail and focus in my own lane is very similar to his. So it was just cool to be talking to somebody that has the same mindset, maybe not in the same passions or ecosystem, but
right.
The brain like works the same as far as like grinding and like his just drive to continually progress. And I think that's why he's so successful is like he just released the brain thing that he was talking about, and now he's already working on the next thing, and then it's going to be the next thing. So he's continually progressing, and I think that's what's going to allow him to blow up tremendously over the next 5-10 years, because he's staying up to date, if not ahead of where like science and stuff is.
Man, and he's not just focused here on achieving the greatest nutritionist in the world. He's moving into other planets. I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah, that was wild. When he said that, like, I was like, what?
That's awesome. That's so cool. And now I got a new thing to focus on, man. I'm training for Mars.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Let's go. Well, hey, everybody. Thanks for watching. Hope you had a lot of fun. Oh, we did forget to ask. We had a couple comments to ask questions. I forgot to ask those, so I apologize. Maybe we'll try to get those over to Dan and get those answered on the thread here. We can probably do that, right? Yeah, right on. Well, hey, everybody. I hope you have a best week ever. Love you guys.
Thanks, guys. Peace.